The emergence of the Great Rift, coupled with the era referred to as the Noctis Eterna, plunged the Imperium into a state of unprecedented crisis, rivaling the apocalyptic events of the Horus Heresy. This turbulent period left half of humanity's dominion, known as the Imperium Nihilus, cut off from the Astronomicon, isolated from contact with the wider Imperium. The Imperium Sanctus was heavily disrupted by distress signals and transmissions that overwhelmed the psychic minds of the astropaths, pushing them into a state of madness. Planets found themselves besieged, armies and fleets were scattered, and the loss of life reached catastrophic levels. The Primarch Roboute Guilliman, newly returned to the Imperium, recognized that humanity was now engaged in a fight for its very survival. When Roboute Guilliman emerged from his 10,000-year stasis and made his way to Terra, his first destination was the Emperor's throne room, where he ventured in alone. The details of their encounter remain shrouded in mystery, known only to the two participants. What is evident, however, is that Guilliman emerged from that meeting with an immense sense of purpose. Despite the grim circumstances of his awakening, Guilliman wasted no time devising strategies to avert total catastrophe. His determination was so resolute that he had already set numerous plans in motion even before approaching the High Lords of Terra. These early strategic moves took place before the conclusion of the Noctis Eterna. Guilliman's proposition was nothing short of the most significant endeavour for humanity since the time of the Great Crusade, an ambitious gathering of armies and warships from every corner of the Imperium's armed forces. Their collective mission was to prevent the impending extinction of humanity at the hands of its numerous external and internal adversaries. Recognizing that, despite the prevailing disasters, the Imperium still possessed substantial military might, Guilliman believed that when harnessed and directed with precision, this strength could stabilize the Imperium and thwart its enemies. Although the idea of so much of the Emperor's realm being consumed by war troubled Guilliman deeply, he wisely refrained from rushing into battle prematurely. He understood that only his comprehensive knowledge of the situation could set his plans in motion and generate the necessary momentum. Overcommitting to any single battle could divert focus from the broader war and jeopardize humanity's survival. The High Lords of Terra readily accepted Guilliman's proposal, recognizing its potential. Guilliman personally engaged with the Fabricator General of Mars and the Abbess Sanctorum of the Adeptus Sororitas, securing their cooperation. The cost of their support was known to very few. Guilliman extended his sights to every corner of the Imperium in his quest to unite the scattered Imperial forces. While all agreed, some did so with reservations. Privately, many questioned Guilliman's motives and whether his plans were selfish in origin, or if he intended to manipulate the High Lords of Terra and the Emperor. Rumours circulated suggesting that the plan might have originated with the Emperor himself during Guilliman's reunion with him in the throne room. However, these notions were built on heresy, speculation, unreliable texts, or unverified legends from distant ages. Once Roboute Guilliman had committed to his mission, nothing could deter him from gathering the vast resources necessary for what would later be known as the Indomitus Crusade. One of his earliest actions was the Primarch's Scourge, a brutal purge aimed at ensuring stability within the Sol system, where the initial efforts of the Crusade would be concentrated. Guilliman couldn't afford instability, insurrections, or the potential destruction of vital assets due to hopeless last stands. Xenos worshippers, heretical cultists, and troublesome Imperial figures were all dealt with through political, diplomatic, or military means, as they proposed significant obstacles in his grand plan. While the purge resulted in collateral damage and some areas of dissent, it ultimately achieved its goal. making sure that the operation in the Sol system proceeded without significant disruption from sabotage, sedition, or political maneuvering. To assemble the massive forces required, Guilliman dispatched messages to numerous worlds and in orbital stations across the Sol system and beyond, demanding warriors, weapons, and supplies. In his directives to other planets, Guilliman displayed further ruthlessness, acknowledging that some systems were defensible in their current state, while others were not. He withdrew military forces from planets that couldn't withstand their attackers, leaving them to their own fate. Lost worlds could be repopulated, but armies lost in hopeless last stands could not so easily be replaced, at least not in a timely manner. As the colossal military build-up progressed, even faster than Guilliman had anticipated, the Primarch turned his attention to his monumental crusade. He took measures to codify viable warp corridors and establish secondary mustering points, like Gehenna. The Ordo Malleus raised concerns about the sheer number of warp translations happening in the Sol system due to the constant influx of vessels, which could potentially destabilize the Imperium. Guilliman deployed countermeasures to contain such a threat if it ever arose, but it did not slow down the pace of the gathering. Roboute Guilliman had a clear vision for the Indomitus Crusade. It would not be a single massive fleet used like a battering ram. Instead, it would consist of 10 immense fleets, such as Fleet Primus, Fleet Secundus, and so forth. Each fleet would be led by its own fleet master, an individual directly accountable to Guilliman. These fleets would comprise troops drawn from every branch of the Imperial military, with armies numbering in the billions. However, these colossal forces were not expected to operate as a monolithic entity. Instead, each fleet would be divided into smaller battle groups, each under the command of a group master. These forces were identified by high Gothic alphanumerics, such as Battlegroup Alphas and Battlegroup Bataris. Each battle group would be self-sufficient, pushing its own objectives and campaigns, with the group master reporting solely to their fleet master and Guilliman. Although battle groups were the smallest permanent formations within a fleet, the group masters and fleet masters had the authority to create smaller detachments, known as task forces. These ad hoc units would be assembled for specific purposes, and ideally would return to their permanent battle group once their mission was achieved. However, the unpredictability of war, the challenges of warp travel, and various other factors often led these task forces to fight independently for extended periods, forming strong bonds and developing their unique identities and subcultures. Guilliman assigned each fleet a distinct grand strategic mission to ensure that each played a unique role in his intricate counter-offensive plan. The flexible structure of a fleet was not a single lance piercing into the void, but a legion of swordsmen with many blades. Nevertheless, Guilliman understood that circumstances and losses would affect the fleet's ability to execute their tasks. Therefore, he granted his fleet masters and group masters requisition powers, allowing them to bolster their forces as they traversed the void, reducing the need for external reinforcements that would otherwise slow them down. Some commanders took full advantage of these powers, often depleting newly liberated worlds of troops and resources, leaving them even more vulnerable. Over time, the composition of the fleets evolved as campaigns continued. Destroyed elements were replaced with reinforcements, and damaged formations were redeployed. Officers rose through the ranks due to valour, whilst those who failed were replaced. The fleet's cultures also transformed as they absorbed the idiosyncrasies of new forces joining their ranks. Fierce rivalries and unbreakable bonds formed among the diverse elements of each fleet and battle group. They developed their own campaign badges, battle honours, heraldry, tattoos, or scarification rituals that solidified their unity and marked their shared experience. Fleet Tertius was the first to depart from its origin point, setting course ahead of schedule to confront a cornate crusade of slaughter heading for the Sol system. Fleetmaster Cassandra Van Lescus specifically requested this campaign, and with Guilliman's approval, secured a decisive victory at McCorta Sound, demonstrating the prowess of the Indomitus Crusade fleets in the process. From there, Fleet Tertius continued its journey, venturing into the Segmentum Pacificus and onwards into the Segmentum Tempestus. Fleet Secundus followed closely, heading straight for the Eye of Terror along a path known as the Road of Martyrs. This fleet encountered numerous warp-spawned horrors and formidable resistance. Only when Guilliman was confident that the Crusade had gained momentum and that the threats to Terror had been neutralized did he depart with Fleet Primus. This force swiftly split into multiple battle groups, heading in various directions, bringing aid to multiple systems simultaneously. Thus began the Era Indomitus. The colossal undertaking initiated by Roboute Guilliman demanded vast resources and the most skilled leaders. The planning and organisation had to be both resilient and adaptable, as the entire operation's success depended on ensuring that the fleets had the necessary supplies to continue their mission. Effective logistics were absolutely critical to the ongoing success of the Indomitus Crusade. This required each fleet to be accompanied by extensive flotillas of transport vessels, fuel tankers, forge ships, void-borne hospitals, and various supply barges, which were even more numerous than the warships they supported. It also necessitated a complete overhaul of the Imperium's logistical capabilities and the establishment of long, secure supply lines. However, at the outset of the Crusade, many of the Imperium's astropathic communication ducts had been damaged, severely impeding communications. The bureaucracy of the Adeptus Terra was overwhelmed, drowning in paperwork and plagued by disputes over conflicting information. To address these crippling challenges, Roboute Guilliman established the Officio Logisticarum, a new territorial branch of the Adeptus Terra with a singular purpose: to ensure that the Crusade fleets had all they needed, and to efficiently and accurately document every detail about them. To assist in this monolithic task, Guilliman issued the Boracae Decree. This decree granted the Officio Logisticarum the authority to requisition Astromilitarum forces for its protection, and directed the Crusade fleets to establish fortresses in the wake of their victories, which would serve as support and resupply centres for the wider Crusade. The earliest fortresses were established at the muster points of the Crusade, forming the initial links in the growing supply and communication networks that followed the battle groups. The Sol system was converted into a bastion of logistical power. Existing Adeptus Mechanicus facilities were expanded, and void docks, orbital defence platforms, ground fortifications, and data archivum engines were installed. Even before the completion of all these enhancements, thousands of Logisticarum adepts were deployed alongside Astromilitarum regiments to defend bulwarks, strongholds, and defence turrets. Thus, Hub Fortress Aquila Adamant came into existence. Later, Aquila Bellicos and Aquila Furians were established in the Gehenna and Hastos systems. In accordance with the Boracae Decree, Group Masters and Fleet Masters left numerous strongholds behind as they advanced through the stars. These fortresses were highly diverse due to the personal preference of their builders, local circumstances, and pragmatic considerations. There was seldom enough time or resource to construct hubs like the Aquila Adamant, and not all the chosen locations were equally suitable for construction. Some planets remained embroiled in warfare, even as massive storage silos and astropathic towers were being erected. Fortress worlds such as Arctol's Stand and Vigus II were logistical choices due to their strong defences and extensive stores of supplies and weapons to withstand prolonged sieges. However, such ideal sites were rare. Some locations were too inhospitable or unstable, making them ill-suited for such a garrison. Additional challenges arose when political maneuvering influenced the selection of a world, moon, orbital station, or hollowed-out asteroid for a hub fortress. This sometimes led to suboptimal choices, as in the case of the declining factory world Yield, which was chosen over the prosperous mining world in the Gregan system due to connections between the planet's governor and a battle group commander. It was later discovered that a gene-stealer cult had infiltrated the highest echelons of power before launching an uprising. Despite these setbacks, the establishment of hub fortresses proved to be a significant success. The Crusade fleets received the supplies they needed, and communications were restored across substantial portions of the Imperium Sanctus. Vast amounts of data flowed through the established astropathic networks. The Officio Logisticarum's data savants and technoscribes diligently recorded communications and reports as the Crusade progressed. Guilliman was determined that this new era for humanity would not be marred by the ignorance that had shrouded it for the past 10 millennia. He aimed to expel not only the darkness cast by humanity's countless adversaries, but also the self-imposed blindness to the universe's realities that had plagued mankind for so long.